welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. It has been a big 24 hours with the Legion Imperialis release. We've got so much information flying at us from content creators who have access to the rulebook, as well as just what we can see on the Games Workshop website. So, what I want to talk about this morning is the cost. There was so much negativity around how expensive this game was going to be before we even knew what we were getting in the boxes and how much those boxes were going to cost. Well, I'd like to examine that. There's still people out there saying this game is going to cost you an arm and a leg. Now, my examining this morning will be pretty loose because, unlike some other channels, I unfortunately do not have the rulebook in my hands and will have to wait a bit longer with my Australian compatriots to do so. But even using loose numbers, it becomes pretty clear that this game is, I want to say, very affordable to get into. Now, to start off, let's look at what we're getting in the core box. So, the rulebook aside, we're getting a couple of Direwolf Heavy Scout Titans and a significant Solar Auxilia and Legiones Astartes detachments. If we look at just the Direwolf Heavy Scout Titans, they come each at about 385 points, which seems very expensive for something the size of a Warhound, but I guess what we're looking at here, they've kitted them out pretty significantly. They've got some great war gear going. So let's say that the two Titans in the core box, are coming in at about 770 points. Now, if you didn't want to run these and replace them with other Titans, sold these off, you'd be getting, about the same money for maybe a Warlord. You put a Warlord in instead, which is also pushing around that 600 point mark. Now, for the Solar Auxilia detachment, it's a little tricky just by looking at it to work out how much it's going to cost and conferring that. What I'm using to come up with these points values is still the White Dwarf Battle Report and what was in there. But I think you're getting about 500 to 550 points of Solar Auxilia in the detachment that we can see in the core box. And same for the Legiones Astartes detachment. I think you're getting between 500 and 550 points. That's what would make sense to me. It'd be great if someone has the rulebook or has managed to see pics of it. I have no doubt that pictures of these things are going to start flying around the internet. Please feel free to confirm my assumptions in the comments. Now, I'm not entirely sure this is a legal kit out for a force, what comes in the core box, because from my understanding, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, only a portion of your force, and I think 30% is the number we're hearing at the moment, can be allies. So I'm not sure if you can actually run all of that Solar Auxilia and those Titans in a, let's say, Legiones Astartes main force. It seems like you're then pushing over, if you were running a 3,000 point force, it seems like you would then be pushing over the 1,000 point or less, I suppose, limit of 30% or whatever that allied contingent is. So my advice would be to actually go down one route for now. So pick up the core box, and if you've got a mate doing the same, maybe swap your Auxilia for his Legiones Astartes, or vice versa. Or maybe look at running a solar detachment without the Titans to make sure you're within that allies threshold. We'll wait and see. Certainly, when they talked about the box, they talked about it being enough for two factions, more so than forming one force. So I think they've kind of recognized it very subtly and very quietly in the background. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It means we're getting options to two factions right from the start out of the core box in a very easy to collect and significant way. But I think a couple of people, if not a few, may be surprised that that isn't going to give you a force that you can actually play with. So, do some swapping, but as it stands, you're getting around, let's say, if you do some swapping or if it is a legal force and I'm incorrect, you're getting around 1,800 points in the core box for £120 at recommended retail price. That is a huge part of your force. Let's look at what else we could include. So we're pretty limited at the moment, but this will get a lot easier as more Solar and Astartes kits get released. Let's focus on building an Astartes force with what we have available right now. So these kits, each of these kits if we're just looking at the regular kits, they're £30 each. So Games Workshop has gone for that £30 or 50 USD price for these boxes. I dare say in Australia, we'll be looking at about 80, 85 for each of these boxes. From a pounds perspective, from the UK perspective, that seems really competitive. That is I can't be sad about that price for 4 Kratos, for instance, or for 10 Rhinos, or for 2 Beyblades. Doesn't feel as good, but certainly for the Kratos and the Rhinos, or for a full infantry detachment of either Solar or Legiones Astartes, I can't be sad about that price. If you compare it to other Games Workshop kits, let's look at Dante. For example, you're getting, yes, a super special and exciting Space Marine, but you're getting 1 Space Marine, even if that Space Marine is special and exciting, for around £27. So it's the equivalent, essentially, of getting 1 fancy Space Marine or a bunch of tiny tanks or tiny infantry. A bunch. So I'm pretty happy with that price. So if we look at the kits we would add to get us to that 3,000 point mark, and let's not forget, you do not have to play 3,000 points to play this game. I think that'll be the most common point level, but I feel 2,000 point games are going to be just as meaningful and just as exciting. But if we want to get up to that 3,000 point mark, let's add for a Legiones Astartes force. You could look at a couple of Kratos sets. Once again, that's 8 Kratos for £60. That's pretty good. You might want to add a couple of Legiones Astartes infantry sets. That gives you a lot of options and means you can start running dedicated Terminator squads, for instance, without having to mix and match with those tactical detachments. And a box of Rhinos. Let's just throw a box of Rhinos in there. I don't know how the Rhinos are going to be costed. I dare say they will be either quite cheap or they will come as a special detachment rule where you get Rhinos for free, much like we saw, I think, with the drop pods from the battle report. But let's chuck some Rhinos in there just for good measure as well. Now, I'm pretty sure by just adding those 5 kits, the 2 Kratos, 2 Legiones Astartes infantry, and a box of Rhinos, I'm pretty sure you're at, if not past, the 3,000 point threshold. Please someone confirm me if you have the details, for only an extra £150. Now, if you went down the Solar path, maybe you go with a couple of Baneblade sets, you go 2 Solar Auxilia infantry boxes, and let's go with a Lightning Fighter Squadron. The aircraft in particular seem to be priced quite expensive in this game from a points perspective, so a nice way to fill out your 3,000 points. Now, you've definitely got enough to start playing some decent games with all of this. It may not quite come to 3,000 points. I think the Solar are going to be a little bit cheaper than the Astartes, but I don't think you'd be under it by much. Now, if you apply the 20% discount from third-party retailers, you're sitting at, in total, for a 3,000 point army, £216 total. For the Americans, you're looking at about 360 USDs. And if you're not getting that 20% discount, so be it, that's a choice that you've made. Those prices go up to, I think, £270, there we go. And I think about 450 USD if you're buying retail from Games Workshop. My question to you is, why? 20% discounts are out there. And funnily enough, with this box being apparently super popular, it is now sold out for now in the US and the UK from the Games Workshop websites. Whereas third-party retailers, it looks like they've still got pre-order allotments. So if you did miss out on a box, you're disappointed, couldn't get it from the Games Workshop website, go with third-party retailer, people, and save yourself 20%. But swinging back, 3,000 points for £216 or 360 USD, that seems like a really good deal. People were throwing around the number of £1,000 for those White Dwarf Battle Report armies. And look, maybe the way they're built out, they are, but I think you can get to a very playable and very decent 3,000 point army in this game with what we've got at the moment, which is so limited to what we're getting, for £216. 360 USD. That's cheap, people. For Warhammer, for tiny plastic, that's cheap. You would not be able to put together a equivalent tournament-ready 40k army for £216. You're not doing it. It seems super affordable for a specialist game, and certainly isn't the doomsday scenario that other channels have been putting out there. I think this has come as a pleasant surprise to a lot of people, certainly to myself. I was expecting it to be more expensive, and subsequently, as I was saying, the Legions Imperialis core box, it sold out. The queues were huge. People were diving in there to get this box. Everyone that's been saying this game won't be popular, no one will play it, it's dead on arrival, you're wrong, it seems. People seem to be into it, it's affordable, they want to play it, the hype has managed to amazingly linger, and hopefully a lot of people are going to be playing this game. If you haven't got your copy yet, look at those third-party retailers, there's plenty out there, give it a Google. check them out, order your copies. There's still more out there and cheaper than you get them from retail. But that's all I wanted to talk about today. Please put down in the comments your thoughts on whether this game is more expensive than you thought it would be, if it's cheaper, if you think it's affordable, but importantly, make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for Heresy.